I had to pause for a second. Well, yes, but it's not like you'd even remember that you'd forgotten anything, Mr. Hodge said, looking uncomfortable. You'll be perfectly happy in the future, I promise. Jonah looked from Mr. Hodge to JB. Both of them were staring back at him as if they expected him to make some sort of decision. He glanced back over his shoulder. Several of the other kids were peering anxiously toward him as well. Why? Oh yeah, Jonah thought. I did kind of take charge before, grabbing the elucidator, capturing Angela, opening the door, closing the door. He felt like climbing up on top of the bench again and calling out, "Hey, guess what? I'm good at quick things, snap decisions, rash actions, that's all. This one's too big for me. Someone would have to think about this one for a long, long time. That's not my department." But no one else was talking. Jonah sighed. "What if we just want to stay in our own time?" he asked. "This is where we belong, the 21st century, I mean." "But the future's even better," Mr. Hodge said as JB interjected. "No, you really don't belong in the 21st century." "Yes, we do," Jonah said stubbornly. JB shook his head. "It was just a mistake. All of you ending up here where you did. When you did," he said. Hodge was carrying his load of stolen babies to the future, and we, those of us who enforce the laws of time travel, we knew we had to stop him as soon as we could. There's a protocol to stopping in the middle of the time stream, steps everyone agrees to avoid doing even more damage. Hodge broke every rule. "Oh, come now, that's impossible," Hodge said mockingly. "You time fanatics have so many rules, it'd take an eternity to break them all." JB glared at Hodge. Jonah could hear a few kids in the back of the room snickering. "I'm not explaining this well enough," JB said, looking back at Jonah. "It's really complicated, but I'll try to put it in terms that you can understand. It'd be like a criminal kidnapping a bunch of babies in New York City and trying to fly them to Los Angeles. But when he's caught in the middle of the country, he refuses to give up. Instead, he crash lands in Kansas City and sets off a nuclear weapon that completely destroys the Midwest." He paused, looking down at the ropes around his wrist. Then he peered up again earnestly. "I'm trying to undo that nuclear explosion." Everyone was silent for a long moment. Then Catherine complained. "That's a stupid comparison. A nuclear explosion in Kansas City would kill all the stolen babies, too." Other kids began muttering as well. Jonah heard Alex say, "But the nuclear fallout blowing toward Los Angeles would be kind of like that time ripple thing that he was talking about." Jonah held up his hand, and to his amazement, everyone stopped talking. "Okay, I get it that nobody planned for us to end up here," he said, "but that's what's happened, and so far we've lived all of our lives in the 20th and 21st centuries, and so this is where we belong now. It's what we know, it's where our families are." His eyes skimmed over Catherine's face as he said that. She smiled encouragingly. "Look," Jonah peered at Mr. Hodge, You're just going to have to find some other babies for those families in the future. And you," he turned his attention to JB, "you're going to have to figure out some other way to fix the ripple to save time. I'm sure you can think of something. I don't know about the other kids, but I'm staying here." This would have come off very well, very dramatically, except that he realized he wasn't saying exactly the right thing and was forced to add weakly, "I'm staying now, whatever, you know what I mean." Mr. Hodge smiled slyly. "That's what I've always loved about 21st century Americans," he said. "They're always so convinced that they can control their own destinies. Go on then, walk out that door, have a nice life." And then Jonah remembered the nothingness on the other side of the door, the fact that the 21st century and everything else outside the cave had disappeared. "Tell me the code to go home," he said, "please." Mr. Hodge shook his head, and Jonah turned to JB. After a second's hesitation, JB began shaking his head too. "You're going to have to choose," he said. "Your now is off limits. Which will it be, the future or the past?" So your now is off limits. So like you're not going there now. So are you going to go into the future or the past? Go back to your previous life. So that's the choice, future or past. Ooh. Okay, we'll stop there. See you later.